The fight for justice in African American life has always been a story of generations. From slavery to emancipation, from segregation to civil rights, each chapter was written with sacrifice, resilience, and hope. But the story does not end in the 1960s or the 1970s. It continues in new struggles, new voices, and new battles for dignity in the modern era. When Barack Obama was elected as the first African-American president of the United States in 2008, many believed the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had finally been realized. For a moment, the nation celebrated a milestone that would have seemed impossible just decades earlier. Crowds filled Grant Park in Chicago. People wept tears of joy. Families told their children, "You can be anything, even president." But beneath that historic moment, the realities of daily life told a more complex story. While progress had been made, African Americans continued to face systemic challenges. The wealth gap remained wide. Schools in predominantly black neighborhoods struggled with fewer resources. Healthcare, job opportunities, and housing all revealed disparities that could not be ignored. The dream had advanced, but the struggle had not ended. Then came the 2010s, a decade that would ignite a new movement for justice. It began with the death of Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old boy shot in Florida in 2012. When his killer was acquitted, the nation erupted with outrage. Out of that pain, a phrase was born. 3 simple words: Black Lives Matter. What started as a hashtag quickly became a movement. For the first time, social media allowed stories of injustice to spread instantly across the world. What once might have remained a local tragedy now became a national cry for change. The following years brought more names, too many names. Michael Brown in Ferguson, Eric Garner in New York, Sandra Bland in Texas, Breonna Taylor in Louisville, George Floyd in Minneapolis. Each story told of lives cut short, families broken, and communities demanding answers. Each protest grew larger, each chant louder. Millions marched in the streets, echoing the voices of Selma and Montgomery from decades earlier. The movement was not just American. It spread to London, Paris, Berlin, and beyond. The world was watching. But while protests filled the streets, the fight for justice expanded into every corner of American life. In the arts, African American voices rose with strength. Films like 12 Years a Slave, Hidden Figures, and Black Panther didn't just entertain. They educated, empowered, and inspired. Musicians used their platforms to tell truths that the headlines could not capture. Beyoncé, Kendrick Lamar, and Childish Gambino turned stages into spaces of protest and pride. Kendrick's Grammy performance with Chains and Fire became a visual history lesson, while his anthem, All Right, became a chant in the streets of Ferguson. In sports, the legacy of activism returned. When Colin Kaepernick knelt during the national anthem in 2016, he sparked one of the most controversial yet powerful acts of protest in recent memory. For some, it was disrespect. For others, it was courage. But like Tommy Smith and John Carlos raising their fists at the 1968 Olympics, Kaepernick's gesture reminded the world that athletes were more than players. They were voices for justice. At the same time, the struggle against systemic inequality pressed on. The issue of mass incarceration weighed heavily on African American communities. Statistics showed that black men were imprisoned at rates 5 times higher than white men. Families were torn apart. Children grew up without fathers, and entire neighborhoods bore the scars of over-policing and harsh sentencing laws. Activists and organizations called for reform, pushing for fairer laws, alternatives to prison, and investments in education rather than punishment. Education itself became another battlefield. Across the country, debates over what history should be taught in schools grew louder. Should children learn about slavery in its full truth? Should the civil rights movement be celebrated only as a victory or also studied as an ongoing struggle? For many African Americans, the erasure or sanitization of history felt like another form of injustice. The classroom, like the courtroom and the street, became a space where the fight for justice continued. Economically, progress was uneven. African Americans made strides in business, technology, and entrepreneurship. Yet, the racial wealth gap persisted. a reminder of centuries of exclusion from land ownership, fair wages, and equal opportunity. Organizations encouraged financial literacy, investment, and community building, but the road was steep, shaped by history's heavy hand. Culturally, African American life influenced the world in ways that could no longer be ignored. Hip-hop, once dismissed as noise, became the voice of a generation. Fashion, language, and style born in Black communities reached every corner of the globe. From TikTok dances to Hollywood blockbusters, African American creativity became the blueprint of modern culture. Yet, with influence came questions of appropriation, recognition, and respect. Who profits from the culture, and who pays the price? The debate itself became part of the struggle. Then came 2020. The world was locked down in a global pandemic, and once again, injustice was laid bare. African Americans suffered disproportionately, higher death rates, greater job losses, deeper economic struggles. And in the middle of it all, a video emerged from Minneapolis. A man named George Floyd, pinned to the ground, calling out for his mother as a police officer knelt on his neck for more than 9 minutes. The image shocked the conscience of the world. What followed was one of the largest protest movements in history. From small towns to major cities, from America to Europe to Africa, people marched with signs reading, "I can't breathe." Statues of slave traders and colonizers fell. Corporations issued statements, governments pledged reform, and millions of voices joined together demanding justice. But even then, change was not simple. For every step forward, there was resistance. For every policy proposed, debates raged in legislatures, schools, and households. The fight for justice remained what it had always been: long, difficult, and unfinished. And yet, African American life has never been defined only by struggle. It has been defined by creativity, by resilience, by joy in the face of pain. Families still gather at cookouts, passing down recipes older than memory. Churches still lift voices in song, blending sorrow and hope into hymns that carry generations. Artists still paint, sing, dance, and write stories that make the world stop and listen. Children still dream of becoming more than what society expects of them. The fight for justice today is not just about laws or protests. It is about memory, remembering those who came before, those who sacrificed, those who believed in a future they might never see. It is about resilience, knowing that while the road is long, each step forward matters. And it is about legacy, ensuring that the next generation inherits not just struggles, but strength, pride, and possibility. From the plantations to the protests, from the blues to hip-hop, from Jim Crow to Black Lives Matter, the story of African American life is a story of refusing to be silenced. It is a story still being written. It is your story. It is our story. And it is far from over.